Hello, welcome to Prompting, Reinforcing, and Fading. My name is Jerry Schaefer, and I'm an educational consultant with the Capillary Intermediate Unit in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My colleague, Shauna Montgomery, and I have developed the following module as part of the Tier 2 Assistive Technology process. This process was designed to build capacity in AT within local school districts and cooperating agencies. Each module is designed to provide information about best practice in AT. Okay, let's get started. What is prompting? Prompts are things we arrange or do to increase the likelihood that someone will make a correct response. This could be verbal or nonverbal instructions. We often give visual schedules or sequencing of steps. It could be gestures, pointing to a picture or a word, for example. It could be modeling, a physical demonstration of what we want the student to do. That whole I do, we do, you do. It could be touch. This could be a light touch on the shoulder to remind the student to pay attention, or it could mean using a full physical prompt when we help the student touch or point. It also could be arrangement of an environment, such as setting an alarm or moving to another area of the room. Like the reading carpet, for example, gives students a cue that reading and listening will be happening there, and they have expectations about what that means and the rules about how to behave. It takes balance. We want to be careful that the prompts we give are increasing appropriate behavior and decreasing learned helplessness. We also want to avoid prompt dependency, which is different from learned helplessness. Prompt dependency happens when the student does not initiate a behavior without first getting the prompt to do so. I know you've seen students in your classrooms who may be prompt dependent. Our goal is that students will learn a skill and be able to perform that skill with a natural or even no prompt at all. What are the basics? First, we identify the least intrusive prompt. We'll take a look at some hierarchies and talk about this more. Second, we give differential reinforcement. This can be tricky, so it's important to understand. Third, we fade the prompt, and here's where we have the most difficulty. Often we stay at the prompt level that has the most success and we never fade, and that's how prompt dependency is born. Let's look more closely at step 1, determine the prompt hierarchy. I'm sure many of you have seen a prompt hierarchy. There isn't one hierarchy that's perfect for all situations, and my best advice is to pick one that is clear and easy to follow. And display it where everyone can see. So each student may have a different place depending on their skill level. You assign this place by starting with natural cues and adding support until the student has success. That's their prompt level. It may be different for different skills, and the harder the skill, usually the more support the student will need. Here's a hierarchy I like. The green areas are ideal because they are least restrictive. A natural cue is when the student can give success just by being in an environment. For example, walking in the hallway has certain rules, and you can follow others to a classroom or when leaving the building, and it doesn't require support. However, you may have a student who can't navigate the hallway for many reasons, and they may need visual support, such as a map of the school, to find their way around. A student may need direct verbal directions, or a student may need someone to walk with them to class. You start with the natural cue and you add support until the student has success. That's the prompt the student will need. Step 2, determine how the student will be reinforced. Most classrooms and schools have a specific set of rules that they want all students to follow. These rules are usually posted and reinforcers are decided ahead of time. For example, students may receive tokens for being caught following rules. Then when the whole class fills up a jar, they get to have a popcorn party. That's just an example. But there's also individual reinforcers. So here's a picture I took in one of our classrooms. Shout out to Kristen Hockenberry of Lower Dauphin School District. The teacher made a list of external reinforcers that each student responds to so that the adults are aware of them. I think this is a great way to vary the reinforcer and keep the student interested. In the hallway example, the student may be reinforced by getting to their class on time and feeling good about that. That's a natural reinforcer. It's tied to the task, and it's the best kind of reinforcer because it's internal. What types of things are reinforcing to our students? Let's look at the types of reinforcers. There's social, tangible, primary, and token. Many times, primary reinforcers are easiest to identify. However, we try to stay away from these reinforcers. Our students often have difficulty eating and drinking, so we want to be sure their physiological needs are being met and that they're ready to learn. And if those needs are met, then the primary reinforcers aren't as effective. The strongest of the reinforcers are often the social ones. The examples on the right are mostly social. I think they're great ways to reward a student without spending a lot of money. However, our students with social deficits often find tangible items the most reinforcing. They often don't recognize the social cues we're sending, so tangible items work better. Token reinforcers are earned, and at some point the tokens can be traded for something the student wants. Sometimes the token itself can be reinforcing, but usually the student is being asked to delay their gratification for a bigger payoff. Really depends on the student which reinforcer you're going to choose. Here are some things to keep in mind when setting up your reinforcement ideas. Make sure that your reinforcer is something you can give or withhold every time. Also, remember that there's no universal reinforcer. There's not one thing that works for all students. You just have to keep looking for that thing that particular student is being reinforced by. Reinforcement is not the same as bribery. You want to make sure it's as natural a consequence as possible. And then you want to make sure it's very frequent at first. And as the behavior increases, the frequency of the reinforcement decreases. And that social reinforcers are really powerful and can be paired with other types of reinforcers so that eventually you could fade the other types of reinforcers and just have that social reinforcer, which is usually much more natural. Step 3 is having a plan to fade the prompts. There are 4 things to remember. When the student consistently completes expected behavior, the prompt should be faded. You can change the level of the prompt. You can change the frequency of the prompt. You can rotate, replace, or fade the reinforcer. And you want to make sure you take data so you can make a data-based decision. Also remember to define consistent, which just means that how often do you want the behavior to happen? Every time, 90% of the time? Just make sure that that word consistent has some sort of definition. And also define complete, which means that you have to have a specific behavior or skill you're looking for. You can't settle for close enough. That's a trap we fall into sometimes. Make sure the goal is realistic and the student can be successful, but don't give in when the student refuses, because whatever you reinforce will be repeated. Let's take a look at an example. The task in this example is communication, and more specifically, making a request. Devon will point to the word go on a communication board. That's our goal. So let's say we have a toy that does something fun, and she has to point to go, and then we will make it go. We've determined that she needs a prompt. We need to model with the toy and model pointing and say the word go. When Devon points to the word go, we will reinforce her by making the toy go and using some verbal praise, like saying, "Great, I like the way you pointed to the word go. I made the toy go. Let's do it again." Now, let's imagine we're having lots of success with Devon, and she's really doing well and pointing to the word go. So now we can outline how we're going to fade the prompt. First, give a non-direct verbal cue. Let's make the toy go. Second, we'll stop the verbal cue and just point to the word go. And then third, we won't point to the word anymore. just point to the toy and look at Devon. And then last, we put the toy on the table and we wait. And Devon will initiate by pointing to go. The whole time we are reinforcing with social praise. Good job, you did it. This is fun. Some additional thoughts. Prompting in AT is behavior management. And it's the same as any behavior management. However, AT is typically not part of that behavior plan that we usually see in an IEP. So we have to sort of have our own plan. And be sure to know which specific outcomes you are monitoring. Physical use of AT versus the navigation of the AT versus the task that is tied to the AT. So many times when I go out to teams and I see their data collection, it's unclear whether the student is having trouble with the physical use of the AT, or if maybe they can't navigate to the word correctly, or if it's the task itself, the game that they're playing that's giving them the problem. So you have to really be careful about that. Thank you for taking the time to complete the Tier 2 module, Prompting, Reinforcing, and Fading. Please remember to complete the reflection questions and review the extra materials provided. If you have any questions about this module or you'd like to discuss your role in the AT process, please feel free to email or call us. This is our web address, and you can find our contact information on that website. Please remember that AT consultants are available for in-person training and consultation with your team. Thanks, and have a great day.